Hey YouTube, it's Ben here. I've got my buddy Chad. Chad's an exercise physiologist, got his degree in exercise physiology. Today wanted to get together and talk to you guys about exercise and aging. So you might be 30 approaching 40, 40 approaching 50, or maybe you're over 50, right? And you're wondering, how do I get started, right, with exercise? Or how do I get restarted? Maybe you stopped, right? And you know you need to get going again. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and maybe light a spark under some of you and help you get exercising again. So let's get started here. So Chad, we'll throw out a scenario, right? And we'll just say I'm approaching 50, right? And I've not exercised in quite a while. I'm busy, right? I've got a job, I've got a family, I've got extremely limited time. I know I've got to exercise. I just went to the doctor. I've got high blood pressure, and he told me that I need to start getting regular exercise in. And he told me that that the standard, right, is 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity exercise. And I have absolutely no idea, like that number just scares me, and I don't know how to get started or get restarted, right, because of how chaotic my life is.
Sure.
So how would you maybe approach that or coach to that somebody in a scenario like that?
That's a good question. It's a very common question that I've heard hundreds, if not thousands of times in my career. I think it all starts out with the why. Why are you even wanting to do it to begin with? And really focusing on having a plan of action to slowly introduce a new activity into your week, because a lot of people have multiple activities that they're doing every single day.
Yeah.
And now we're going to add on one that could potentially take away 3 more hours of your week.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I always like to look at what kind of activities do people like to do.
So make it maybe enjoyable.
Definitely make it enjoyable.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, especially when you're starting something new, there's nothing enjoyable about doing something new that maybe you kind of have maybe a little bit of resentment in wanting to do to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's really important to look at small progress first, as opposed to, I got to get this 150 minutes in this week.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times I think it's looking at why you want to do it, what could be some benefits or some outcomes you'd want to see from doing it.
Yeah.
And trying not to limit yourself to just going to the gym, just to be active. It can come from many.
So maybe
sources.
like trying to incorporate it in my daily life, and maybe it won't occupy as much time as I think it may.
Correct.
Okay.
It also depends on where you live too. So if you go outside, it's pretty cold, and a lot of times it rains. A lot of times it snows.
Yeah.
Right. But I look outside my window, and I actually admit I'm pretty shocked to see how many neighbors that I have that still go outside and walk their dog and go outside and still get their activity in, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you're getting started, I do think it's important to try to make it as moderately comfortable as you can, as opposed to just, nope, it's raining, I gotta go. Because now you're going to be going against the grain. And this applies to people who have been active before and maybe got away from it, or you're just starting for the first time. So we talked about having a reason, the why. We talked about overcoming some barriers, right? We talked about making it comfortable. And then now we have to really figure out, well, what are some activities that maybe you could do that wouldn't be too much of an inconvenience throughout your day.
Yeah. So let's go back to my scenario, right? I think maybe in that scenario, the doctors told me, right, I've got high blood pressure. Internally, I know that I just haven't been exercising. So the why for me is for my health, right? So maybe I can live longer with my family and friends, and back to like the time is the I guess the factor or the issue, or the barrier, right, that I've got to figure out how to navigate through or across or around. But I work, right, at a workplace that has a sidewalk or a walking path around it. Maybe even it has a gym. It's a building with stairs, right?
All of those things don't require that you have to exercise and start sweating. A lot of those things just involve just basic movement.
Yeah.
So for example, when we look at time, right, our most precious currency that we have, just something as simple as 2 15-minute breaks a day breaks down to 130 hours a year, which is about 3% your annual salary.
Yeah.
If you have a 30-minute lunch, for example, there's another 130 minutes a year, and that's just at work, right? And I use the numbers more of like just what is my reality, right? That could be opportunities for a walk, and when you're looking at 150 minutes, even if you did them in 10-minute increments, for example, that works.
Yeah. Because
when you're getting started, we're really looking at maybe what we're used to seeing on social media, where guys are saying, go to the gym, which is true, and I do recommend that. But it's really, we're looking at where we're at right now. Yeah. And trying not to focus on what is ideal.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ideals out there. I mean, you can just go on social media and you get 100,000 fitness influencer videos in front of your face that, you know, they're I'm not looking down on the fitness influencers at all, but that's what's bombarding everybody, right? So they see this sort of perfect person there, right? And that can be overwhelming just in itself, right? So, oh my God, do I need to be able to do 20 pull-ups? Do I need to be able to run a mile in 5 minutes, right? You know, so the typical person, right, is not going to be at the level that most fitness influencers are at. So typical person, right, is very little physical activity, at least in the United States, and really needs to get more and figure out how to do that. So
So planning becomes, so clearly what we're talking about is like having some type of plan or something that you're aware of. One of the most difficult activities that I'll do on a daily basis, most of the time, is to be able to stop what I'm doing and look at what my week is going to look like on a Sunday before my week happens. And then having a little bit of practice and discipline to look at what is it that I want to achieve this week. Yeah. Because we already know what we want to achieve probably in our work life, probably want to know what we want to achieve when the weekend comes, because we're very good at planning family and friends and those types of things.
Sure. But so why not plan for our health? Right?
It's important. You do kind of have to plan for it. Yeah. And I'm guilty of this too. I am not perfect. I am human just like the next person. Yeah. But trying to find a way to work it into your day is helpful. I'll argue that if you have a day where you're cleaning your home, I think cleaning your home is a great way of being active, and it doesn't get enough appreciation. Right?
For sure. Absolutely.
If you have children, children love to play. Yep. Being able to play with children. Yep. I have a lot of friends that have children in between like the 5 to 15 range. Yeah. So they bless their heart, they do a lot of traveling for practices and games and you name it, dance. Kids need that in their life. They need that structure too. Yeah. So they're, in a way, our kids and other people around us are modeling for what you could be doing.
Yeah.
I understand a lot of people want to watch their children's activities and be present. I think that's super important. And you also got to be present for yourself.
Yeah.
So maybe part of that planning could be maybe walking around the rink when maybe a child is playing hockey. It could be
walk around the soccer field.
correct. Like
Yeah.
you can find, I mean, if you can find other ways of doing that, I think you'll find that that's really helpful. For me, I really try to keep track of my activities. I have a smart watch. I don't want to name any brands, I guess, but a tool like that, a lot of people have their phone. Just taking a couple minutes to kind of document or track each day kind of what you're doing is also a great way to kind of add up that time so you can kind of see progress. I think part of what we're talking about here is I'm doing it, well, what am I going to get out of it?
Yeah.
Main argument, especially when you're getting started, is how about the fulfillment of doing something different for yourself? That in itself is way more important than just I lost 5 pounds or I lost 10 pounds. We're really just looking at getting started.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yep. And getting started, right, for each of us, right, could mean something different, right? And Chad has said a few things, right, about could be as simple as gardening, right? And maybe you're already gardening, right? And you just really didn't think about that as exercise, or not gardening, but house cleaning, right? So there's quite a wide variety of activity, right, that you can do to get started or restarted, right?
Yeah.
You may not start running, right? Maybe you were a runner 10, 20 years ago, right? And that's something you want to get back to. But there's just no way, that there's no way you're going to be able to do that, at least right now. But to get there, you have to start moving, right? So walking, right? Getting more walking in, and eventually maybe, you want to start running small increments during your walks and then building that up.
Yeah, I think one of the scariest parts for anyone getting started, because I've gone through periods. I grew up heavily in sports. Played a lot of baseball. I ran track in high school. When I went to college, I wasn't in any sporting activities. And then my freshman year, all of my new friends, they were all playing soccer. I never played soccer before, but I gave it a shot, and then I ended up playing soccer on a D3 college team, which actually is kind of funny because I had no business playing soccer. But the point is that they got me out of the gym, out of the weight room, and onto a field to learn a team sport. And as uncomfortable as it was great to do it with others. Which is another point that I'm trying to make, is that you don't always have to do it yourself.
So make it social.
People love to talk and walk. In fact, I've learned throughout the years as I've gotten older, when I communicate, for example, with my wife, I can sit down and have a conversation with her. However, I am far more engaged if we take the dog and we go for a walk. Because that, for me, that just stimulates something that I enjoy doing, which is being active. And then being able to hash out marriage stuff.
And you're able to focus just a little bit better.
And I can focus a little bit better. So the fact that I'm able to sit here and have this discussion is a miracle. Because I do not sit still very well.
This is two people with attention deficit disorder, right?
Which is okay. So if you have any other questions on that, feel free to ask some questions in Ben's link below.
In the comment, you can comment and ask any questions. We'll be happy to answer them for sure.
Can I piggyback off of, let's talk about maybe if someone does maybe want to carve out some time and go to the gym. Any new environment that you go into, especially if you're not used to it, it's going to be uncomfortable and scary. Right?
Yes.
When I was in my 20s, I was lucky enough to train a lot of people.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed as I've gotten older is I wish I would have had a little bit more maturity when I was working with people who are my age now.
Yeah.
Because when they came to me, they were, I really need to lose this weight. I need to get in shape. I need to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, cool, come on, let's do it. And then proceed to take them through what I at the time thought was, yeah, that's a good workout. We're gonna break you down today, as opposed to now knowing that when you're getting started, it's really all about getting to know the equipment.
Yeah.
Right. So
And your body and where you're at.
and
right?
your body. Well, you're not, because if you're looking at the technology of equipment that I used 20 years ago,
Right.
for the most part, pretty consistent. There are a number of different machines and suppliers out there that have even more advanced equipment. However, knowing how all the fitness equipment works, how your body adapts to it, plays a big role in it.
Yeah.
Because I did notice that when you're working with someone new and you're really indirectly beating them up, so to speak,
Yeah.
that's not fun,
Right.
right? So that all that does is reinforce the fact that I haven't been active and now this is so difficult. Why would I even want to continue to do it?
Right. Yeah. So the message that Chad is sending, right, I think is, and this, I think it's applicable to whether you're going into a gym or not, and whether you have a trainer like Chad or myself or not, right, is going into that situation, right, and know where you're at, and you're just starting, right, or you're restarting, right? So don't expect to change the world. You're not going to change the world in a day, right? So if you're going into the gym or you're going to get started on your new activity or fitness journey, tomorrow, don't expect to start off and do a hour weightlifting workout, total body, or go out and run for 5 miles, right? You're not going to change the world in a day. Start out with where you're at, right? And make gradual, progressive steps.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'll agree too with that, even for myself, because I've started and stopped activity throughout my life, and in the last 5 years is kind of when I think things have really kind of progressed to where they needed to be for me again. And even now, as I've been reintroducing activities I used to do in my 20s and early 30s, I still have to stop myself from doing something that my mind is telling me that I can without knowing where my body is at.
Right.
So there is definitely a linear progression to this, and it really is just about getting to know yourself and whatever it is that you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
My godson has a black belt in karate, right? At
Yep.
the age of 12. He didn't show up on his first day 5 years ago and said, I'm a black belt.
Right.
I mean, that took 4 or 5 years worth of really dedicated work.
Consistent.
Yeah, it's consistent. And that really is kind of the message too, is focus on what works best for you. Like you said, working on being able to get out of your way. Because there are some days your brain is the devil on your shoulder is gonna win.
Yeah. You're the barrier, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There are days that the devil's gonna win.
Yep.
So we talked earlier about trying to find a way to kind of be strategic and kind of plan out some time.
Yeah.
I'd even take it a step further, and like I said earlier about tracking my activity levels, just to reiterate, write down when you're doing the things that are affecting you for your activities.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say affecting you. The activities that you're doing. You know
Yeah.
what? It's good to go back and look at what you've done. You'd be shocked.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times being aware, having that self-awareness of what you're doing, really helps you with your motivation.
Yeah, and I've learned over the years, and this is just me as a personal trainer, right? You think that personal trainers maybe exercise all the time, they don't have a problem getting past barriers. That's nonsense, right? But what I found is planning is absolutely critical for me as a person in advance of what I want to do, whether that's, you know, lifting weights or running, right? Or doing a race like a half marathon. And I'm old school, so what I'll do is I'll print out a calendar and write on each day what I'm planning to do right now. And I'll give myself a little star if I complete it. And if I don't, right, then I don't get my little star for the day. And that happens, right? You're gonna miss what you plan sometimes, or not get exactly what you plan, right? Maybe you plan to go walk for 2 miles and you ended up walking 1. I mean, that's gonna happen, right? But I think documentation of that, right, or whether it's handwritten or electronic, however you're doing it, documentation, tracking, planning, right, can be crucial for anyone doing this as a thing to look forward or out toward, but also as something to look back historically at, right, of what you were doing, and how you progressed to where you're currently at, and maybe as a tool to figure out where you want to go from there.
Agreed. Yeah.
Let's see.
That was a lot of information.
It was. It was. So maybe we'll just try to wrap here, right? Quickly back over just a few points that we started with, right? Is that, you know, you're getting older, right? You're in your 30s going to 40, or 40s going to 50, or you're over 50, right? Or maybe you've just retired, and, you know, how do I get started, or how do I get restarted, right? I think the answer is you get started by doing something, right? Maybe you're already doing something, maybe you're already walking, but you need to do it a little bit more, right? So figure out and build, right? And plan, right? Document where you're at, make things achievable for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Make them fun, enjoyable. Try to incorporate them into what you're currently doing, right? So on a work break, like Chad was referencing, like work breaks. And the scenario that we had was the guy works at a building, right, with stairs. Well, maybe during a work break, you go out and walk the stairs, or maybe you walk around the building, or maybe you work from home, right? And you know, your break is, instead you walk around the block, or go into the yard and do some gardening. Cut the grass for 10 minutes, right? You might not complete the whole activity of cutting the grass, but get out there and do something, right, with your break time, right? So you're incorporating and using that time that's already there for you. Mm-hmm. And, you know, making it social, right? That was another thing we talked about, is incorporating the people and support networks around you to help yourself be successful, right? And also makes it more enjoyable for yourself to have others involved, right? And by getting others involved, you may be surprised, right, that you're going to help them too. And even if it's somebody at a more advanced level than you, you're probably going to end up helping them, right, as well, right? Just that interplay between people really helps boost each other up.
Yes. I typically work out with cats.
Yeah.
So when I do have someone that comes over and visits and does work out with me, it is actually very refreshing to have that.
Yeah. For sure. That human interaction, I think, we all know it makes a big difference. Not just in the activity and exercise, but just in everyday life. What else am I missing here?
I think you covered a majority of it. Be creative.
Yeah.
Activity can be anything that you want it to be. Do things that you like.
Yes.
Right. Try to have a plan of what it is that the activity is going to be. Don't be afraid to plan it throughout the week.
Yeah.
Track it.
Or a month.
Yeah. Track it so you kind of know how much you've done. So you have a base, or you have something that means something to you. Yeah. Right? Rome wasn't built in a day.
That's right.
Doesn't have to be. right?
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's kind of the bulk of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a pretty good summary. And
Yeah.
I like casual communication in pretty much all areas.
Yeah.
I just find that it's a little bit more inclusive to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
But there's so many different layers to everything that we've kind of talked about that each, like, having a more vague discussion can be very helpful in just kind of exploring what it is I want to do, why I want to do it,
Yeah.
and then basically, am I going to do it? So we could basically have a conversation about all of those
Yeah.
those layers.
Yeah.
But
I think, look, maybe Chad will give us more of his time at some point, and we can dive into some of these certain other pieces, right, of the fitness journey, of how your brain interplays with your body, right? How nutrition plays a role with your body, right? All of that stuff, we could get into that, but so maybe sometime in the future we'll get Chad back on the channel.
Sure.
But know that you guys are not alone, right? And there's people out there, whether it's video or people that are in your network that right? They care about you, right, and want you to succeed, right, and want to help you, and that's why we're here, right? We want to help you, right? So if you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot them out in the comments, and we'll get back to you with answers on those. And appreciate you guys tuning in today. Stay healthy, stay strong, and evolve. We'll see you in the next video.